Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game Esoterica, and continuing a series on the Ridge Racer franchise, doing an entire retrospective across all of the releases, whether they be arcade, handheld, or home console. And today we have the man, the myth, the legend himself, Ridge Racer Type 4. When I say this is absolutely my favorite Ridge Racer game ever made, I 100% mean it. It basically harkens back to the arcade releases, but feels like its entirely new home console variant was designed from the ground up to give us that perfect Ridge Racer home console game. When I say there's nothing this game could do any better in my opinion, I 100% mean it. Before we get too far involved though, to be a huge favor down below, hit like and subscribe and ring that notification bell, definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined to want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But I remember being a kid and picking up a copy of R4, probably with summer job money, because I absolutely loved everything Ridge Racer, and I had seen reviews that said this game was absolutely spectacular. I went home, I put the disc in my PlayStation 1, and I immediately fell in love with it. Because at this point in time, while I still played the Ridge Racer games and checked out the new arcade releases when they did exist in my hometown, I had gotten a little bit bored with the overall formula from something like Ridge Racer or even Rage Racer. I was looking for something in my favorite franchise that felt new and entirely different, and R4 delivered on that promise and more. This is basically the quintessential Ridge Racer in my opinion. There's so many different tracks, it's got these same amazing drift mechanics, but it is designed originally for a home console experience, and it really does expand upon that with so many different Grand Prix circuits, different modes to keep you coming back for more. Because I was really growing tired of getting a new Ridge Racer game and getting 3, maybe 4 tracks tops, being able to see everything it offered in under an hour, and feeling like while I had fun, I really wanted something more in-depth. And this was definitely smart on Namco's part, because there were so many different racing games coming out on PlayStation 1 and home consoles that were designed specifically around that console experience. So the developers at Namco took R4 and made what I would consider to be one of the top 3 best racing games on PlayStation 1, Nintendo 64, or Sega Saturn. Obviously this is on PlayStation 1, but across all 3 of those platforms, this is definitely in my top 3. I'd probably say my favorite is going to be Rush 2 on Nintendo 64, but that is purely from nostalgic reasons. The other thing about Ridge Racer Type R4 is just how absolutely beautiful this game looks. Yes, I'm playing it in Duckstation to make it look even prettier, but when this game came out on home consoles, it really pushed the power of the PlayStation 1, showing just how much a developer could get out of the horsepower if they were well versed in coding for that platform. This game today on a CRT television on a PlayStation 1 is still, in my opinion, one of the best looking PlayStation games of all time. Would you leave me a comment down below and you tell me what the best looking PlayStation 1 game is? I'd be curious to hear what your opinion is. But the thing about R4 is just that it is the total Ridge Racer package. The developers at Namco took everything they knew from the arcade releases, from the PlayStation 1 ports, and even Rage Racer, and brought it into a game that was designed specifically around that console experience, giving us analog controls and so many other features. And I just love the vibe of R4. I think that might be what I gravitate towards the most outside of the gameplay. The bright, cheery colors, that bluebird sky, all of the different things to see billboard-wise on the edges of the screen, even though you should be looking at the course in front of you. This just felt like it was crammed to the hilt with so many different things to see and do. And it was finally that Ridge Racer game I bought at home that made it feel like that $50 investment actually got me dozens upon dozens of hours worth of gameplay. Because in the Grand Prix modes alone, expanding on your vehicle, upgrading it, taking on different races and challenges really kept you coming back for more. And even though this game of course doesn't have the most amount of tracks ever for a Ridge Racer game, you didn't get a PlayStation Portable for that, they gave you enough meat on the bone for you to feel satisfied and feel like you got an amazing Ridge Racer experience. I even love the sense of humor of the game, where you basically start out as the rookie and your pit boss basically just absolutely drags you from start to finish until you start to perform better in the races. It's a fun little touch and really does motivate you to do better. But my favorite part of this game by far is the soundtrack. Ridge Racer always has great music, but R4 has the best. Go ahead and listen for 45 seconds and I'll be right back with some more gameplay.
We're racing Route 99 in Edge of the Earth. 3, 2, 1, go! Here we go! It's the time! 3 laps to go.
absolutely incredible music, and this game is filled from start to finish with some of the best tracks in the entire franchise. Now, I will say I know some people don't love the fact that the drifting was kind of calmed down a little bit from the arcade releases, but I actually prefer that on R4. The drifting feels very realistic, or as realistic as an arcade racing game is going to give you, because this is definitely on the arcade side, not the sim side. But if the original Ridge Racer is a 10 out of 10 as far as arcade feel is concerned, then this dials back that overall arcadiness to maybe like a 7 out of 10. That's not a review, I'm just saying that's how the car handles. But the tracks here, going through the tunnels, going under bridges and little overpasses, just 100% does it for me. And I think that's why I really do love this game. It's down to the presentation. Every single track is unique and charming. There's so much to see on the edges. The music is incredible, and you marry that with what I would consider the best gameplay of a Ridge Racer game ever made, and you just have an absolute recipe for success. And I know a lot of people think Ridge Racer 7 is the best in the franchise, and I totally understand that opinion, and it may even be right, but for nostalgia reasons alone, this game just hit when I first played it, and it is a racing game I keep coming back to year after year. And as far as it standing on PlayStation 1 and arcade racing games are concerned, I would consider this to be the best racing game on the platform. It just genuinely is that incredible. There is nothing I could improve on this title. You even get some amazing FMV cut sequences and the introduction to some new characters to the Ridge Racer franchise, even though they don't really have a lot to do with the game in and of itself. Ridge Racer has always had mascots, and this basically gave you some fun backstory to them. But though honestly, when I watched this FMV for the first time, and I've always wondered this to this day, the woman is going to walk into the tunnel and break her heel because cars race by her, but she seems to be walking directly in the middle of the road. So it's probably her fault she almost got hit, because you can see here, just walking straight into that tunnel, probably not good for pedestrians. But all jokes aside, when you're doing a retrospective, that is kind of the stuff you look at. You kind of try to get a sense of what the game is doing in all aspects. But what Ridge Racer does, and does the best, is just be an incredible arcade racing game. The control on this, especially with the analog controller, is just perfection. But they also came out with their own controller for the release of this game, the Joy-Con, and right now in this footage I am using it with my PC, adapting it over, so you might see me bump a few more walls than I'm used to. And it was such a unique and interesting thing to release a controller for a game. It basically consisted of a giant wheel in the middle of the controller, and you could basically dial your controls in turning wise left and right with a little depression your finger could fit in on the controller. I've really never 100% understand why the developers did that. It is an interesting mechanic and it is fun to play around with, but I only own the controller out of curiosity mostly. I was really just curious years ago what in fact it was good for, and I would say just definitely stick to the DualShock controller, although the Joy-Con is a fun curiosity. But it's fun that developers do stuff like that. They basically thought from every angle what they could do with R4 in the gameplay department, in the visual department, and even in the controller department. And trust me, Namco released a lot of interesting controllers back in the day. Look up some of the most unique ones. You'll definitely see a lot of things that are very strange. But I'm going to give you one more soundtrack sample, because again, I think what this game does better than any other Ridge Racer game is give you music that really drives the racing forward and really hooks you in. Because while all Ridge Racer music is good, this is still a 10 out of 10 best of the franchise. Enjoy, and I'll be right back. It's just such a good track. It's got that jazzy beat to it, and I really do think genuinely that the better the music in an arcade racing game, the better you're going to race. There's something about gelling with the soundtrack you're listening to that really just does help you perform. But again, using the Joy-Con right now, having a little bit of trouble. But that is the thing about R4. This game has absolutely everything you could possibly want, especially when you would come from something like Ridge Racer or even Rage Racer on PlayStation 1. Fans wanted a brand new experience, giving them new tracks, new gameplay modes, and just something new to see and do. If Namco would have released another Ridge Racer game that borrowed tracks from the arcade versions of the game, or even ported over Rave Racer, I think the franchise would have definitely stumbled as opposed to releasing R4. But Namco knew exactly to what they were doing. They knew fans wanted a new Ridge Racer game, and they knew they wanted something new and expanded and fresh. So R4 gives us absolutely all of those things, and I do consider it to be one of the best arcade racing games of all time. I've been playing this thing since it came out in 1996 in North America, and I will probably play this game at least for 10-15 minutes once a year until I finally give up on video games, go blind, or end up 6 feet underground. But that is how special this game is to me, and honestly it's the reason that I decided to do a retrospective in the first place. I've always loved Ridge Racer, I've always loved all of the games, but R4 is special among a franchise that's got a lot of special entries. But short of that, tell me what your favorite Ridge Racer is down below. We're done. I'll see you next week for more Ridge Racer, and I've got videos throughout the week as well. But 10 out of 10 game. Bye bye.